welcome to Stretch and Release. My name is Wade and this is Maria. Today we are doing a stretch and release focused mostly on calves and hips. Our big focus today is going to be working with pregnant people. Maria is 32 weeks pregnant, so we are going to start with some calf rolling here. And then as we start rolling, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're doing in that roll, but I'll also give a few things for people who are doing the stretch and release with us today. One thing that you want to be very cautious of, and I'll mention that to kind of everybody, is something you don't want to overstretch too far. When you're pregnant, you get a hormone that loosens up all your ligaments, all your joints, so you want to be very cautious about if you feel uncomfortable, maybe taking just a small step back. You want to feel stretched without getting into that uncomfortable zone. So if you aren't pregnant, a lot of times you can push yourself into that uncomfortable area just a little bit, and you can get some flexibility gains there. But when you're pregnant, just be very cautious about stretching too far. Your body's extra flexible as it is, so you want to be very careful to not overstretch and stretch your tendons and ligaments to the point where they have a chance to be hurt. But as we move into these calf rolls, I'll have you place your ankles on that foam roller. You'll have your chest out forward, and you'll have your toes pointed towards that wall in front of you. And you should feel that right on the bottom of the ankles and your Achilles tendon. And as you're rolling out right there, you're free to move your feet around a little bit as you want. For me, I always feel like I get the deepest row with my toes pointed, but you can have your toes towards your head. You want to just keep as much pressure on the calves as you can. And we're going to spend about another 30 seconds here rolling that out. Right now we're focusing a lot on the bottom part of the calf, but as you're feeling more and more loose there, if you don't feel any knots and that doesn't feel too tight, you can start rolling up closer to the knee if you'd like. Calves are a very important spot to stretch for the general population. You're on your feet a lot. As a pregnant person, you're carrying around just a little bit more weight, so your calves are going to have a tendency to be extra tight. So focusing on a little bit of foam rolling through the calves can be really helpful. How's that feel, Maria?
Feels really good.
Good.
Feels moderate to intense.
Good. And then feel free to move your feet around a little bit as you go. Opening your feet up will roll a different part than when your feet are pointed towards each other. But you just want to keep as much pressure on the calves as you can. But once you've finished that, you've gotten all the way up to that knee, you feel comfortable there, go ahead and set that foam roller to the side. And we'll do kind of a version of a calf stretch here. So this calf stretch, I'll have your toe pointed straight ahead, and you're going to come into a lunge. So the goal is that you have both heels pressed into the ground, and you're just going to slowly move your weight forward. So you'll see that her back foot is nice and straight, her heel is on the ground, and she's doing an awesome job keeping all that tension, all that stretch, all that flexibility through her calf, through her hamstring, all through that posterior chain. And then you can have your hand on your leg here for some support if you want. Otherwise, you can come down, possibly to the ground. That's a long ways down. And again, if you are pregnant, just be cautious about that overstretching again. You may be able to get there, but if it doesn't feel comfortable, that's probably too far. Go ahead and switch sides. And then as you're doing this, ideally your toe is pointing straight ahead, so you don't want that toe coming off to the side. You want that toe straight ahead, and that should get into your calf a little bit more. How's that feeling, Maria?
Great.
Good. Would you say it's moderate, intense, a little easier?
This is intense, yeah.
Okay, so if it is too intense, feel free to come up just a little bit. Like I said, you'll have a tendency to have a little tighter calves than the average person right now or than you're used to having. So you don't have to stretch that as intense as you need to. But give it about 5 more seconds there, and we'll move on to our next stretch, which is going to be lats. So for lats, we'll come over to this right here. I'll have you place your hands on there as you come down to your knees. And then you can do this on a table ledge, on a bed ledge, really anywhere that you have kind of a raised surface like this. This could be done on a chair. But she's going to be dipping her chest, her shoulders, and her body down as her arms are kind of propped up. And this is stretching your lats quite a bit. It's giving your lower back a little bit relief as you come back into that child's pose with your hips. But it's also stretching out the lats and kind of all those muscles across the side. Those lats have a tendency to be tight. That chest has a tendency to be tight when you're slouched forward. If you're doing anything in this kind of position, this is help opening you back up, but it's also giving a little bit of relief through the lower back, which is helpful. So give that another 10, 20 seconds. This is our only upper body stretch we're doing today. So put a little bit of extra time and tension and pressure there. If you want to stretch from your hands, you can. If you want to bring that up to your forearms, you're welcome to stretch there too. I feel like it gets a little bit more intense as I stretch higher up on my arm.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
once you finish that, we'll move on to our next stretch. This one is a little bit more active, and I'll show you a couple of options for this. So this is a squat stretch. You can have your hands kind of right at your chest. You can have them behind your head, off to the side, but your feet will be pointed either straight ahead or about 10 degrees out with your feet about shoulder width apart. And you're just going to drop your hips down and coming down into that squat. Different people will be in different areas for this. Maria's staying pretty upright. If you wanted to get a little bit more of a hip flexor stretch, more for your inner thighs, you can also open up there, but don't feel like you have to. Right now, for pregnancy, you're focusing on dropping your hips down and feeling that through your glutes and trying to work out all through the hips, through the pelvis there. That's going to help later on with labor, but it's also good for stretching out your glutes. After that one, we'll move on to our final stretch, which is going to be Pigeon Pose. So for Pigeon Pose, you'll come down on your right knee forward, and you're just going to be, put this behind here. When you're pregnant, or if this is a newer exercise for you, I'd recommend putting a bolster, a block, or maybe a pillow under your hips so that when you come down into that Pigeon Pose, shifting your weight forward, pointing that knee forward, you have something to stabilize yourself on there. So having a block or a foam roller there is just going to help you keep a little more upright. A lot of people have a tendency to drop down to the point where their hips start to open up, and they do that, and they feel like they'll have to sit on the ground. So having something back there is going to help keep you just a little bit more upright, stable, and keep that pressure and tension in your hips the way it's supposed to be felt. So right now, she could lift up her arms if she wanted to. All that weight is in her hips. She's getting that stretch and that tension all through her hip flexor on her left leg and her glutes on her right. We'll give this about probably 10 more seconds, trying to get in there a little bit deeper. If this is an easy stretch for you, you're not pregnant and this is one you've been doing for quite a while, you can lean forward, and that can sometimes get you a little bit more lower back, a little bit more hips in there. But otherwise, staying upright, for most people, is a better choice. Go ahead and switch sides. Placing that block, that bolster, that pillow under the opposite leg, coming forward with your left. And then shifting that weight. You can place those hands to help you get down into that position. And you should be feeling this all on the outside of your left leg and through the right hip flexor. And again, she could lift her hands off the ground if she wanted. That weight is centered on her hips. She's not keeping all that weight in her hands. And that's another reason that sometimes it's better for people to not lean forward. Anytime you lean forward and kind of put that pressure on your upper body, it takes some of the tension out of your hips. And it's really easy to do this stretch improperly or wrong if you are leaning forward. So having that upright pose there can be helpful. So, how you feeling?
I feel great.
A little tired?
Yeah.
Good.
Definitely.
So most of these stretches are very active. They're not very passive. It's not the most relaxing stretch and release we've ever done, but they're great for getting your body moving, for building heat through your muscles, and she should feel like she got a pretty good workout here in these 10 minutes. So,
Yes.
pretty sure?
Yes.
All right.
My hips feel great, calves feel great.
Awesome. Well, that's it for today. Went through some hips, some calves, a little bit of lats. Hopefully you had an awesome workout. You feel great. Great to do whether you're pregnant or not pregnant. So hope you guys had fun, and we'll see you next week.